what they would be processing. Is like, oh, this is these scales go with this. This is what fits here. Like they would be from that to like, oh, nah, man, you know, like the repetition, the part where I learned the repetition was growing up with Cameron Graves. I would watch a guy sit and practice piano for 9 hours a day growing up. Wow. Literally, we could be having a conversation. It wouldn't matter. He had the metronome on. He'd be chewing his tongue and going through the scales while you trying to sit here and play Resident Evil. And, you know, and then he'd get up and play some Resident Evil, you know, and then go right back to playing. You know, that was my upbringing, you know, and I was very fortunate to have Cameron and Kamasi and my older brother as teachers. You know what I mean?
And what, like early on, you know, outside of those guys, you know, and living in the sort of world of jazz all the time. I mean, who were the people, the artists that really kind of connected with you early on, where you were like that, you know, like I want to play bass. I want to play bass like that, or you know, I get it now.
It was definitely Jocko and Stanley.
No, Stanley Clarke, right?
Jocko and Stanley, like again, of course, the introduction is to Jocko around the age I'm around 10 or so, and the same thing with Stanley.
Yeah.
I was of a certain age, and then, you know, it's one of those things where I had many different moments. I remember everybody would always talk to me about different cats growing up, you know, again, Ray Brown and, you know, Mingus, of course, and stuff like that. And
right.
Then I would, you know, Ron Carter, of course, and Miroslav Vitus. Like, but it's funny because I think that the place that it lies specifically for me was in the jazz fusion era, because there was everything in being embodied in those moments, from upright to electric. And I felt like in that moment, as a transitional part of the music, I think there was somewhere where I knew that there was a place for me that existed. You know what I mean? It's like there's a part of it where it's like, oh, as a bassist, being able to do all of that, you know, like this is okay. This you can do. It was like almost like being introduced to this is what you can do with your instrument.
Right.
You know.
Right. Well, yeah, I get it. Yeah, because like, you know, because of the way you grew up, you realized on some level that there were limitations to traditional jazz. Right. So I imagine, you know, getting hip to Stanley Clarke or Jocko, you started to like the departure from upright to like almost any possibility at all. Yeah. Yeah. And then two other important ones are Anthony Jackson and Paul Jackson. Anthony Jackson like changed my sense of melody and harmony tremendously. You know, it's kind of like one of those things where there's only a few bass players that I would always say I wanted to be like growing up. It was definitely Stanley and Jocko, and it was Anthony Jackson right. And Paul Jackson. And Anthony Jackson played electric, you know. I mean, I'd have my favorites, Eddie Gomez and Charlie Hayden and stuff like that. I was very aware of different, you know, cats growing up. But Anthony Jackson's relation to melody and how often he would be able to, how effortlessly he would change the course of music from the simplest place. It just always was like, I want to be able to do that. I was like, I want to be able to do that. It was like you could hear him talking under the music. It was crazy. Well, that's the opportunity that bass gives you, is that you can just sort of like almost quietly change everything.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
it's,
you know, it's like, where are we now? And I don't know. The bass player just did something, and we're in a different place entirely.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. I always feel like, and we always say, you know, oh, lead singers, guitarists, you know, oh, sure. You're like, we know deep down bass players around the world.
They do. The rhythm section runs the world, really, right?
Yes.
And I don't understand that relationship with like, you know, I learned about it later in life, just like listening to rock music, that, you know, that if the rhythm section isn't tight, the whole project's a mess.
Yeah, you wouldn't drive a Lamborghini with a donut. I mean,
yeah.
You don't have your wheels aligned properly.
Yeah, but where do you put like people like you know, I have to assume, only because I just talked to him a couple of weeks ago, that Bootsy is important.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah, man. And to be honest with you, like man, oh man. And it's like, again, like Bootsy and Bernie Worrell, to me, that was also who I wanted to be like.
Well, I hear it like all through your records. Like there's like, because, you get a groove and you're not concerned with hooks. You're kind of concerned about, movement. But everyone, like there's that Bernie Worrell style synthesizer that just pop in occasionally, like, whee!
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay. There's a reminder. It's like of something, an intergalactic reminder.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah. Oh man, Bootsy and Bernie, man. It's just, it's like somewhere between being able to vacillate between roles as the instrument is always like leaned on, or it always has like this heavy anchor, trying to find the ways that it like can also become texture, can also become progression. It could also become percussive, like finding those places.
Yeah, because like I noticed that, like, if you lay a couple of bass tracks down, because I noticed that yesterday, it might be on the new record, where, you're kind of, doing something very upfront with the bass as a single voice almost, where, this is the bass singing here up front. But then all of a sudden, like a different bass will, drop that bottom beat, as a percussion. But you're still on top of it with the other one, or however you're working that. And then you really kind of illustrate what you're talking about, the two differences to, the approach and the possibilities of bass.
Yeah.
But like Bootsy, like what struck me about talking to him is like out of nowhere on this last record, this new one that he did, The One, he's playing with George Benson. And I'm like, George Benson? Really?
Yeah.
And then like but then you got Kenny Loggins, you got Michael McDonald, but you've got this respect, coming through fusion in the 70s for these cats that, like, in my youth, I might have found a little boring, right? So, like, George Benson, George Benson's all right. I know him from the hits when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But, Bootsy's like, I always wanted to play with George Benson. And I'm like, really? But
George can rip, man.
I know, he's great.
Yeah.
But I judged because of my association. It's hard for me to sort of adapt to fusion, dude. I don't know why. Like, out of all the jazz styles, it's hard for me. And I think one of the reasons is because there is a kind of softness to it. And I require anxiety. And you know what I mean? I need the jazz to have a Ritalin effect on my own trip. Like, I
hear you.
You do? Okay.
Yes.
But listening to you or listening to Lotus, that, like, if you want to go on the ocean and, just, take that journey, it's here for you. If you want to be in a fucking storm, then, go live there. But
right.
you have this, right?
Right. I hear you.
Does that make sense?
That makes total sense, man. I'm like, I don't know. And I go like this. Well, here you go. That's where enter George Duke and Frank Zappa.
Right. Right. Yeah, man. Right. Because like that stuff, like you listen to the production on that shit, and there's no way it's not going to be hard on you. It's not going to be harsh, no matter what Frank's doing. The way that they put that stuff together, stuff that is pretty aggressively dissonant and challenging.
Yeah.
But still, there's such a ring to it. You're like, I'm okay with this. It's not making me aggravated.
Yeah.
But what was it like? I guess Jaco and Stanley would do it because that seems to be, where you prefer to live is in that kind of, starting with that fusion foundation. Yeah,
man. I don't know, because it's like, I think it's important. Man. To a major degree, like the ability and prowess of the instruments, like your physical ability, it's like, it's important. It's just as important, And I feel like there's a lot of, and like I said, I always am a firm believer in the idea of somewhere in between, like finding where it's almost like it's no different than a marriage or love for something, it's like the hard work as compared to the feelings and stuff like that, and trying to understand how to balance those things. It's literally always somewhere in between. I think the same when it comes to the music. I think like, okay, be able to have that, but then also be able to pull back, but then also be able to, like intensify and
right,
have something to say. It's imperative.
And also structurally, like, because of the way you've set up how you conceive of albums and music, like, you've really set up a situation where you can do whatever you want. You know, for like, you know, you have 30-second, 40-second, 2-minute pieces, but you can move through any sound you want.
I mean, well, you know, one of my favorite things is, I always say, you know, like, DRI can do a 20-second song and nobody will bat an eyelash to it. You know?
Right.
It's like, it's like, that's all in there. I'm like, you know what? Sometimes that's all you have to say. You know, it's like sometimes that one moment is it, and it's not meant to be anything.
Why not let it be its own thing?
I think those moments are just as important, you know?
Yeah. And you've probably gone over this before, but like, talk to me about, because it seems like you and Kamasi and whatever you guys, you know, how that all came together with Kendrick on To Pimp a Butterfly, that there was something fundamental about, like, I now know the evolution out of, you know, jazz into hip hop into rap. Like, I watched a documentary on the Blue Note, on Blue Note Records, and I never put it together quite like that. And now I kind of get that. But it seems to me that when you guys did that album, that you had really sort of discovered the kind of the perfect symbiosis between jazz and rap. Do you feel that something was that, like, because of, I guess, Kendrick's sensitivity to, you know, what you guys were doing, or I don't know if he grew up with you guys, that you created something, I would say, almost totally original with that record because of the jazz element? Yeah,
man, that album, it was the definition of a perfect storm, you know?
Yeah, how'd that happen?
Man, you got, you know, it's the snapshot of everything that was literally happening at the time. Again, not if we were going to keep it musically, it's one of those things where everybody's mind and heart was open in that one moment to trying to push into something new. And the way he would go about bringing that about, you know, it's like sometimes it's like the part where, you got to get us all in a room together sometimes, you know, that's definitely a part of it. You know, everybody, along with their heart and mind being in the same place, it's like physically with the instruments and stuff like that, you know, we were spending a lot of time in different ways and stuff like that. You know, me and Kamasi are always on tour in our own worlds and stuff like that. And at this point, I'm writing music like every day. You get on the computer and, you know, I'm digging around up here and, you know, digging around over here and it's a bit like, you know, it was kind of like everybody brought their best to that moment, I think. You know, this is.
And did you guys know Kendrick? Did you grow up with him?
Not in the same way that I grew up with the Kamasi. I didn't know Kendrick as a kid, no. But in the process of working, he reminded me, or let me know the first time that he got a chance to interact with me. And it was like, I think I was playing with this group, J Davy, and him and his group, I think Black Hippie opened for J Davy at one point. And he expressed to me how he remembers seeing me play with him. And I think I had met him, and that was, again, years prior to Pimp a Butterfly coming out, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was hard for me to remember, too, because, again, mentally I'd be in different places back then, of course, you know. But, you know, it was crazy because it's one of those moments where I think that this was a moment where he just wanted to bring me in to what it was, I guess, a bit. And I'm happy he did, you know. I'm very happy he did.
And it was open, right? So, like, because it seems to me that generally is not, like, you and Kamasi had a shorthand, and, you know, and you were all, it seemed like the creative convergence was not that common in that world, in the sense that using real instruments and whatnot. Is that true?
No, we again, this is years and years of us having played together. So it's like, it's one of those things where if, you know, you get us in a room, it's not going to not happen. You know, it's like, that's what we've spent our life doing. So it's like, you know, even if we hadn't seen each other in ages, or like I was saying, Kamasi being on tour, I'd be on tour, or, you know, Miles doing his thing, or however this translates, it's like, you know, it's, you know, we would learn, we've known each other's music since we were kids. So, you know, you start playing a tune and like, oh yeah, I remember that tune, or like, and
And Kendrick was just open to it because he knew what you guys were capable of?
Yeah, or he would take elements of it and like, he'd place it or he'd find places for it.
Yeah, right.